Beautiful. I want to welcome everybody to this celebration of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. I welcome you on behalf of Friends of Sabeel North America and Christian peacemaker teams to this rally, Unite to Decriminalize Indigenous Struggles from Turtle Island to Palestine. We are going to open this rally with a poem by Rafif Ziad. And during the poem, please feel free to enter the space by sharing in the chat where you're coming from, the indigenous land where you're joining us from. And if you need help with that, you can go to the website nativeland.ca, native-land.ca. My collaborators are going to put it in the chat so you know the website. My name is Khury, and I'm coming to you from a place called Boston, located in Massachusetts, Wampanoag territory. This poem by Rafif Ziad is called Trail of Tears.
This call is not written for you, this call is not written for you, it's for the sun and the moon. This call is not written for you, it's for the sun and the moon, for the earth brown like us, for the earth brown like us, for the rivers, waters that know, that saw what you did. For the rivers, the waters that know, that saw what you did. This call is not written for you, it's for the sun and moon. For the earth brown like us, for the rivers, waters that know, that saw what you did. Trail of tears. Trail of tears from Baghdad to Tayandanega, trail of tears. We're still walking a trail of tears from Palestine to 6 nations. We're still walking a trail of tears. We're still walking a trail of tears. Their gods promised them our lands, trail of tears. Bury their fears in our skin, trail of tears. Uprooting our olive groves, stealing our lands, trail of tears. Bury their dead in our skin and build golf courts on our corpses, trail of tears. Call death machines Apaches. They dare to call death machines Apaches, and their cars Cherokee, and their cars Cherokee. Glaring like the sun, glaring like the sun, our signs, we were here before you. Glaring like the sun, our signs, we were here before you. Trail of tears. Trail of tears. This land knows us before you. This sun knows us before you. This land knows us before you. And this sun knows us before you. This moon knows us before you. Our mother here knows us before you. Our mother here knows us before you. And ancestors guide us. Ancestors guide us not to become you.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move into a land acknowledgement. Thank you all for joining us today. I know a lot of people are spending a lot of time on Zoom these days, so I just maybe want to invite you to take a deep breath right now together, to welcome us into this space and this moment together. And we want to begin with a land acknowledgement today. Although we're all in virtual space today, many of us in this gathering are participating from Turtle Island, colonially known as Canada and the United States. It is sometimes easier to look far away and to point to Israel and Palestine, or to point to South Africa or to Tibet and say, sure, settler colonialism is bad here, but it's worse over there. And this is a distancing game, and it's referred to by Cherokee Wolf Clan scholar Jeff Corntassel as the Free Tibet syndrome. And he describes that as the following. This is a quote: "A settler tendency to cast their decolonizing gaze to faraway places and provide token support for the distant self-determination movements rather than to focus on local Indigenous struggles. The Free Tibet syndrome is a way of looking far away from one's localized responsibility by disguising or diminishing the violence of the local circumstances." So in today's rally, we will look at the similarities between settler colonial projects of Canada, the US, and Israel in the hope that we can stay implicated in the local liberation struggles. Turtle Island has been stewarded by many Indigenous nations for thousands of years, and they continue to resist violence and oppression. Indigenous peoples survive and thrive despite land theft, attempted genocide, extraction, and as we will learn today, criminalization. We want to acknowledge whose lands we are on. If you do know whose land you are on, please type it in the chat. And if you don't, please take the time later today to research it. The website native/land.ca is a really excellent starting place to do this research, and we will again put that link in the chat for you. We acknowledge that some of us in this rally today, such as myself, are consciously or unconsciously invaders on this land. For those with a more privileged ancestry, your people may have come to these lands for opportunity. Some of us on this land are here as a result of imperial wars and actions that made our homelands unsafe to live. Some of us are here as a result of our ancestors being kidnapped by imperial wars. Their labor and freedom was used by the state to dominate the land. We acknowledge that through pipeline construction, government legislation, and gentrification, land dispossession has not stopped, as racism and settler colonial structures continue to hold up today. So we must all work together to decolonize Turtle Island. Therefore, our acknowledgement today must go beyond these words and into action. And it's our hope that today's rally will help us along the journey as we work to decolonize the spaces where we live. Thank you.
Hi all, we're grateful to be here with you. My name is Jonathan. I'm the communications manager for Friends of Sabio North America, and I'm also a reservist with Christian Peacemaker teams. For FASNA and CPT, as organizations that were founded by Christians, we recognize that it's important to also acknowledge the ways that Christianity has played into colonization. We acknowledge the continued effects of colonial Christianity. Colonial Christianity has taken many shapes, from the Crusades wreaking havoc on Jerusalem to the doctrine of discovery enabling European land grabs worldwide. Colonial Christianity creates concepts like manifest destiny and Christian Zionism that bolster US and now Israeli expansionism. Colonial Christianity is a brutal distortion of the message of a brown-skinned Palestinian Jew living under military occupation 2,000 years ago. So may this meeting today be part of undoing the harm that has been done in the name of Christ. And now I also have the honor to introduce our moderator today, Khury Petersen-Smith. He is an expert in US empire, borders, and migration. And we are so grateful that Khury will be leading us in this space today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome again to this rally in commemoration of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. This day was founded in 1977, and we will celebrate it until Palestine is free, which, as Palestinian young people remind us, will be in our lifetimes. Palestine will be free because of Palestinian resistance and because of solidarity with that resistance all over the world by those of us who refuse to be silent as violence against Palestinians is carried out in our names and with our tax dollars. Because Palestinian resistance, because of that resistance, which won't stop, despite all the efforts by the Israeli state and its allies, such as the US and Canadian states, to suppress it. That violence includes the criminalization and resistance of all kinds. And we are therefore confronting criminalization in today's event. We know that the criminalization of indigenous protests, however, is not something that is limited to Palestine. Those of us who, like me, live here in Turtle Island know that indigenous resistance here, resistance to defend Native people, to defend the land, and to defend the water and the air, that resistance is criminalized. And this is why our event today is called Unite to Decriminalize Indigenous Struggles from Palestine to Turtle Island. Now, as we get into it, we know that these are difficult times. With the repression by the Israeli state and Israeli settlers targeting Palestinians, these are dark times. With the repression by the US and Canadian states and Canadian and US settlers, these are dark and heavy times. In a global pandemic, these are dark and heavy times, particularly where I live, where Indigenous, Black, and Latino people have been disproportionately suffering and impacted by this pandemic. But these are not only times of darkness and heaviness, they are also times of solidarity and resistance. When Palestinians defy ongoing Israeli violence with their living and with their protest, these are times of solidarity and resistance. When Native folks across Turtle Island occupy, take their own territory in defiance of settlement, in defense of the land, in defense of the water, in defense of Native people, including folks who you're going to hear about and hear from today as part of this rally, this is a time of solidarity and resistance. When Black folks rise up in rebellion in Minneapolis and well beyond against racist police violence, this is a time of solidarity and resistance. And so I want to welcome you today to a program that reflects, yes, what we are up against, but also the resistance, the defiance, and the solidarity. And with that, I want to introduce Tarek and Eid Hatheline. Tarek Hatheline is 24 years old. He studies English teaching methods at Hebron University. He is from the village of Khair and has been a peace activist for more than 5 years. He became involved in activism as a result of his observation that there was a need for more voices to be speaking out against human rights abuses and home demolitions, and he hopes to defend his community in that way. Eid Hatheline is one of the elders of the community of al-Khair in Palestine, and he has traveled extensively across Europe and this place called the United States, promoting the movement for human rights and Palestinian nonviolent struggle to challenge the mechanisms of oppression. He has presented in Washington, D.C., at The Hague, and other places that are oftentimes cut off from Palestinian voices. Welcome to you, freedom fighters. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, my name is Tariq Al-Hadirin. I'm from the village of al-Khair. Al-Khair is located in South Hebron Hills of the West Bank. Here in al-Khair we face a lot of problems because of the Israeli occupation and its settlers. One of the major issues here we face is the case of home demolitions. Here they start demolishing the homes in al-Khair since the year of 2007. They demolished so far 16 times and more than 60 structures got destroyed since then. And the other major issue is the settlers' attacks. Since the year of 1980, the settlement of Carmel were established on our land, a few meters away from our homes. And the settlers who came to live here, they started attacking the people here. My brother, the oldest brother of mine, he got lost in these attacks from the settlers. I don't mean he died, but he got lost because he became handicapped, and it was from a settler's attack. And there is also the issue of the planning. The Israeli authorities in Area C deny al-Khair village from having any kind of services. Here we don't have water access or electricity or roads, and we are not allowed to build anything. This left us in big, challenges, big difficulties in our lives, and we as Palestinians, vulnerable Palestinians in Area C, we ask the world to stand with us and to stand with the Palestinian cause that is fair and just. And I ask everyone, as a Palestinian activist, I ask everyone around the world to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Hello, my name is Eid Hadalin. I am from the village of Al Khair. Al Khair village located in South Hebron Hills in the West Bank. My village, as many Palestinian places or villages, were located in which called the Area C. That's affect the village in the daily life along these years with a lot of home demolitions, a lot of demolition orders against all the houses in the village here, and that's affect my people and my the families who live here with more harassment, more demolition by the Israeli authority, and then that's create a lot of challenges and difficulties for the families who live in here, and that's caused them a lot of pain and a lot of expenses for the daily life which they want to live. And the other thing is the Israeli authority denied the people to approve their master plan for building their homes in a safe way. That's also one of the sanctions that Israeli authority use against the people who live in Area C in general, and especially the village of Al Khair, like hundreds of Palestinian villages located in Area C. We ask the international community and the brave people who around the world to stand with solidarity and uh, take the story of Al Khair and all these villages to the world and show the truth what happened in the Holy Land.
Okay. So good to hear from our brothers in Palestine, and the incredible resistance that they continue in defiance of Israeli violence. And with that, I want to switch and go ahead and introduce someone who is leading resistance here in Turtle Island. This is Celeste Smith, who is the executive director of Sky Women's Garden and project lead. Celeste is from the Wolf Clan and is Oneida and Mohawk from 6 nations of the Grand River Territory. As an intergenerational trauma survivor, she has made it her life's mission to help women rebuild their connections to the land and their lifeways. Celeste is a seed steward, traditional agriculturalist, and former professor of the traditional ecological knowledge at Niagara College. Celeste, welcome. So grateful to have you as part of this, to talk about this incredible organizing that you're part of.
Awesome. I think we're going to show a video coming up. I just wanted to pop in and just say that this, give a little context to the video. So this particular land back lane kind of started last year. A group of us took over the band office, and we discovered that a land sale had happened. Now, there was supposed to be a moratorium on land sales around the Six Nations Reserve because we actually own it by title, and it's been in the Supreme Court, the Superior Courts, for about almost 30 years now. So what happens is these little bits keep, being erased, and our reserve keeps getting smaller and smaller. So that's kind of the context behind this this video coming up on the current action that's happening. And I think we're ready to roll that video. And we'll be talking to Skylar Williams, who is the official spokesman. We're talking about, he'll be in the video. So while this is setting up, I can give a little more context. So this is the land back lane action here is it's been going on for, I think, about 114 days, 120 days, something like that. It's been going on for a while, ever since July. And so what's happening is, again, the settler state is using the police forces, which they do, to criminalize our people that are on the site right now. And they're actually doing a new thing, which they haven't done before, is they're actually following people that go to the site to drop off food and to around those areas there. And they're following them to their homes and arresting them at their homes. So this is a new thing. Generally, what they would do is they would go to the site and arrest everyone there, take them off to jail. But what they're doing is they're following them home. So this is kind of a new tactic that we're seeing, which is particularly insidious because while they're doing it in front of children, they're arresting parents in front of their kids, little kids, and a lot of people are being arrested right now. So they're actually arresting more people this way than they would just at a blitz, right, when our people are actually there. So that's kind of a new tactic that we're seeing happening. There's what is happening with our band council is our band council is actually, I think we're almost ready to go. Almost ready. Okay, I'll stop talking. So our band council is using
for Canada, just like the U.S. is you know a settler state, you know, and so for us this is occupied territory, and so for us to be able to push that occupation off of our traditional territory is you know, as heavy lifting as it is, it's something that we're willing to do. All of this, like we came in here on July 19th on a Sunday evening. We did that very deliberately because we didn't want a big standoff with the developer and their workers. That was never the intention of us or any of us. Like, we weren't looking for a big violent action. We were looking for our rights to be recognized and respected. After 2 weeks, the developer here filed for an injunction, which is just a kind of another spur that they can put in the OPP to make them initiate the arrests and continue to criminalize us. On August 5th, and day 17 of being there, the OPP showed up and said that they had some changes to the injunction that they had to come and read to us. And we said, okay. We went down to the front to see what was going on, and as we got there, the road started being blocked by the OPP. And so in years past, we've seen, massive community involvement when it comes to, these violent OPP tactics coming into our territory, certainly against land defenders. We started getting arrested. There was 100 OPP that came in. They arrested 9 of us on the first day. By the time I got out of jail, all the roads, highways, and railways kind of surrounding our reserve had all been blocked. And so when I got out of jail, they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to go back to my tent, go back to land back lane. And it was a good tent. And so they were, well, there's a lot of cops over there. Well, there's lots of us over here. And so we got up and just drove in like we did on the very first day. And we walked over and re-secured the land over there, and that was the only time. And it was only for about 5 hours, or 4 hours, that our people were in that land back lane. And so other than that 4 hours, we've been there every day, every night, every hour, every minute of every day. Before then and since then. A lot of folks have been bringing in food, water, you know, supplies, tents, sleeping bags, sending money to help maintain the camp here, and for all of their efforts to try and do all of that, them coming down here has criminalized those people by arresting them away from sight, to try and dissuade any kind of support that we might get. For a lot of people, like covering all the, as far as you can see in concrete and asphalt, is what progress looks like. You know, we've been criticized for the roads being dug up, that like this is what destruction looks like. I'd contest that, like, covering everything in concrete and asphalt, that's what destruction looks like. And they've done this on a massive scale for, you know, 100 years at least. And so for us to be able to make the humble stand that we have, to say, like, you know, this is about peace, this is about unity, is a big part of that for us, because we've been peaceful here, we've been unarmed, we've been peacefully occupying our territory. It has been us laughing and telling stories and jokes and all of it, except for the days that the Ontario Provincial Police roll into town, firing rubber bullets and tasering our people, dragging women and kids off our own lands.
Do you have a message for the international community or other Indigenous struggles from around the world?
I don't care what nation you come from. I don't care whether you're in Canada or the US. We all understand, we all know, every one of us know that this is our lands. And we have every opportunity and every push to be able to let our children and our grandchildren be able to have their communities grow and thrive like every other community has grown and thrived. Every small town, every big city has grown exponentially over the last 100 years, except for reserves. Reserves are the only ones that have gotten smaller. And so for us as a community to say no, certainly to massive, massive developments, for resource extraction, for pipelines and hydroelectric dams to crisscross all of our territories, because we've stayed divided through the tribal systems, or band council systems here in Canada have done nothing but divide us as communities. And so for us to come together and say, you know what, we need to put down all of those past hurts for just this moment, to be able to say it doesn't matter about all of that stuff, just for 1 minute, for us to have the unity to be able to come together and say no. To say no to development, to say no to that resource extraction, to all of the things that our communities know are wrong. All of us, it doesn't matter what family or faction or group or whatever, we all know that these are our lands. You know, in the summertime it was 45 degrees, and you know, another couple of months it's going to be minus 45 with the wind chill. And so for us to be able to maintain that, like we've you know, depended on like the massive amounts of support that we've gotten from everywhere.
Alrighty, so that was the video from Skylar, who's there on the ground, and you probably, if you're in North America, you've probably seen him plastered all over the news and that, and he's doing an amazing job. He's been there since day one, and I just want to give thanks for him and for everybody on the ground, that, you know, that everybody so far is, you know, is safe, and you know, they really put their lives on the line when they're out there, because we don't know what's going to happen every day, right? We've already had forced removals and rubber bullets and tasing of women, and that's, you know, something that we just can't stand about. And so I just wanted to say, like, there's so much context to this video. A lot of people are like, why are they doing this again? Why do they always have to do this? Why are they mad again? And it really goes back to colonization, right? So we talk about settler colonialism and how it affects us, but we've had people on the land, we've had people doing this since settlers came here. But originally it wasn't like that. When we first met the settlers, Haudenosaunee I can speak for only, because they're my people. And even then, I speak this humbly because in our culture, we see everyone as the same height. So no one is more special, no one can, have more views, but we can, or have more respect than anyone else. But sometimes someone can speak to something, right, at this time. So that's why, I feel I can speak today, not because I'm an expert, but because, I do have something to add, and everyone's voice is valuable. So with that, I just wanted to kind of show everybody something that you should read. It's a book called Basic Call to Consciousness. And if somebody could put that in the chat, I know I'm just throwing this at you, but I warn them, I speak from the heart. So when something moves me, I'll bring it up, and I'll bring it up to you. So this is a book that everyone should read. If you want to know about the struggles of the Haudenosaunee, some people would know us as the Iroquois. We no longer use that, because that was what was used to describe us from other people. So now we use Haudenosaunee, which is our some people also call themselves other, like by their tribal, or they're not tribal, but we don't use tribe in Canada. We use a nation. So, you can go by Mohawk or by Oneida or Tuscarora or whatever. So this is a really important book. And what it basically describes is our struggle with what's happening right now. And originally, I'm going to tell you a little story. And somebody just cut me off when it's time. You already just like throw me in there, please. But it kind of gives you some context about what our struggle has been, and not just now, over the past hundreds of years. So I'm going to tell you a story about Discahe. So Discahe was one of our chiefs. His name was Levi General. Discahe is a hereditary name that gets passed down. So Levi General, he saw what was coming. This was before even the Indian Act. It was actually, the Indian Act was just being, in Canada, was just being implemented. So new rules, new things were coming in that were really disturbing to us. So he went to the United Nations, and he brought our struggles there. And it wasn't even the United Nations back then, it was the League of Nations it was called. So he went to Geneva, but because he wasn't an official nation back in the 1920s, he was kind of pushed off to the side, but he did make some friends, and he made good friends with the mayor of Geneva, and he encouraged him to keep going. And you know what? Today, the Haudenosaunee are a big part of the United Nations, bringing Indigenous struggles there. And we actually helped make the UNDRIP, and we helped make the Indigenous Peoples Forum, which is actually a representative. So this struggle has been going on for a long time of bringing our rights. And I'm going to read you a passage from his last speech. Unfortunately, Discahe, he died after he came back from Geneva. The Canadian government, again, criminalized him. They would not let him back in the country. And he died a few years later. And unfortunately, he died alone, because the Canadian government would not let his family over the border. So this is, again, been criminalizing since the beginning. And this is, again, he died in 1927. So this is just something I wanted to read. And you'll notice the similarities from 1920s all the way to now. So, okay, so I'm very, very sorry. I just lost my page. Okay, so Okay, so by the time of the American Revolution, the people of the Haudenosaunee had experienced over 150 years of intermittent warfare. The conclusion of the revolution brought into existence the world's first settler state, and our struggle for survival entered a new phase. So this is in 1784 that actually happened. So at about this time, the state of New York was attempting to negotiate its own treaties with our people. The settlers knew that our governing councils would never relinquish lands or allow their settlements. In response, the New York began to practice negotiating with any native person who might grant them concessions, especially the land concessions they wished. Dozens of state treaties were signed by people under the influence of alcohol at the time, and who often represented no one. A number of treaties were made that bear signatures that are outright forgeries. So you can see that this has been happening for a very long time. And that's exactly what's happening at Land Back Lane right now. So what's happening is that the land is being sold under the to developers to develop large land, and it was actually sold for $325,000, the land in question, and it was over 25 acres. So you can see that that is a very low amount, because the houses in question are going to be about $500,000. So you can see this has been happening all along. And so this is just the latest kind of implement of government and what they're trying to do. So I'm going to stop right there, because I know that the video kind of went a little long and I want to give everybody else time to speak. So, own everyone, and, go for listening to us, and please support our efforts all over Turtle Island. So, go.
Celeste, thank you for taking that time. Class is in session. I just want to extend gratitude and solidarity to our freedom fighters and land defenders at 1492 Land Back Lane. This is one of the most exciting and dynamic campaigns, actions that is part of, it's one of many amazing land back campaigns and actions across Turtle Island right now. So solidarity with our folks there who, speaking for myself, on this side of that colonial border, they don't tell us about Land Back Lane. So very grateful, and so grateful to our sister Celeste for sharing that wisdom. Part of colonialism is, of course, the obscuring, the denial of the reality, the history and the ongoing reality of colonial violence. And that is particularly true for those of us who live in the colonized spaces, right? Like, as somebody who spent my life in Turtle Island, I have been denied the histories of the people who were here before this place was called the United States, and their ongoing presence and ongoing resistance. And so it is an act of defiance and an act of generosity for you to share these histories with us that we need to learn and have a responsibility to learn. And so such gratitude, such immense gratitude. With that, I actually want to turn it over back to Jonathan, who's going to take us into our first action of the rally.
Thank you, Khury. I saw in the chat that some people are asking, like, how can we be in solidarity with these folks? How can we find out more? And the good news is that's exactly what we're doing here. This is not a webinar, this is a rally. We're here to take action in support of the efforts that we're hearing about today. We're going to have two distinct times for action. The first one, particularly about Land Back Lane and supporting their efforts. We'll have one later that is more geared towards Palestine, but I want to tell you a little bit about what we have planned for us here for the next few minutes. The folks at 1492 Land Back Lane, the big ask that they have right now is for nation-to-nation dialogue with the Canadian government. And the person in the Canadian government that they would have this dialogue with is the Canadian minister, sorry, I lost my notes. Sorry, is the Canadian Minister, Carolyn Bennett. She's the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. And so there have been calls to her to actually have these dialogues, and we want to help amplify and echo those calls, and we're going to do it through social media. What social media, and particularly what Twitter, allows us to do is to directly contact Minister Bennett in a way that the public also sees. So they know if she is paying attention and listening, or if she is ignoring our calls. So FOSNA has put together a series of tweets for people to put into their, to tweet out. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a 5-minute Twitter storm where we're gonna ask people to tweet as much as possible if you have a Twitter account. And there are 3 particular ways that we're asking people to participate in the Twitter campaign. The first is to copy and paste sample tweets that Rochelle is going to put in the chat right now. These are tweets that CPT and FOSNA created in conversation with people at 1492 Landback Lane. The second thing to do is that you can retweet posts directly from FOSNA and CPT's page. We've put out a lot of posts, including ones with pictures, which tend to get more traction. And also retweet when you see other people's posts about this as well, so that there's a big upsurge in the number of tweets about this going directly to Minister Bennett, so that she sees that people care about this issue, so that she sees that people internationally care about it. One of the things that I love about this action is that we're kind of erasing this colonial border. It doesn't matter on which side you are. We are taking action in support of the land defenders, in support of the Haudenosaunee. For me, this is particularly meaningful because I live on Haudenosaunee land here in what's now known as New York State. So it is with my neighbors, with those whom I am in relation with, that I take this action today. The third thing that you can do is that you can write your own tweets and tag Minister Bennett and tag 1492 Landback Lane. The reason why we want both of them tagged together is because this action is it symbolically is putting them in dialogue. The very thing that they're asking for, we are symbolically doing within the tweets of giving 1492 Landback Lane folks access or the conversation, putting together with Minister Bennett. Now, we want folks to do as many of those as they can in the next 5 minutes. And if you don't have a Twitter account, that's okay. We have an action for you as well. Because we know that Indigenous struggles are being criminalized in the United States also, and even solidarity with Indigenous struggles in Palestine and in North America are being criminalized by our government. So we have created a platform where you can write an email to your elected officials and to the new administration, demanding that they protect our right to protest, and particularly protect the rights of Indigenous people to protest for their rights. So I'm gonna leave you all to it here for about the next 4 minutes. We're tweet as much as you can. I'm gonna put on a song for some background music. If that's distracting, feel free to mute and come back at 4:52 or depending on your time, that's Eastern time. And the song is by a band called Tribe Called Red, which is a famous Indigenous activist band and the song is called Land Back. So enjoy that. Let's get those tweets out. All right, just one more minute, get those last tweets in, and then Khury will call us back.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us moving. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Thank you for playing some Tribe Called Red, which always gets me going. I just learned that I was visible to some people on the screen, so you could have maybe saw my dancing. So I hope you joined our transnational dance party in solidarity with Indigenous resistance and against decriminalization from Turtle Island to Palestine. with that, I want to move on to the next part of our program and introduce an incredible poet named Roulette. Roulette was born in Amman, Jordan, and raised between Michigan and Southern California. She is a student at UC Berkeley, studying ethnic and Arabic studies, and has been a board member and organizer with UC Berkeley's Students for Justice in Palestine, shout out SJP, for 4 years. Roulette is also a member of the Palestinian Youth Movement, shout out PYM, and was a finalist for PYM's Ghassan Kanafani's Writing Scholarship in 2018. So grateful to have you, Roulette.
Thank you so much, Khury. And thank you all for the organizers and for everyone who spoke. I'm very grateful and honored to be a part of this action. I'm going to be sharing 2 poems with y'all today. And I chose these poems because I feel that they center and uplift the resistance of Indigenous people. And in this first poem, I want to talk about the criminalization of Palestinian resistance and struggle. And this poem is called I Must Become a Menace to My Enemies. And in it, I address how this criminalization often ends in imprisonment. And in Palestine, over 200 children are held in prison. 1 in 3 Palestinians have been in prison at one point in their lives. Palestinian resistance is stifled, crushed, and repressed in many different ways, and prison is one of the main ways, as it is for Indigenous people in Turtle Island as well. And I wrote this poem as a way to kind of turn this criminalization on its head, and to redefine what peace means, to necessarily have to include justice. And also as a reminder that Palestinian resistance, whether it's waving a flag, whether it's walking out for International Women's Day like Khaleda Jarrar, who's in prison right now, Palestinian feminist, whether it's even taking up arms and armed resistance, that's all protected under international law as an occupied people resisting against colonization. And those are all our forms of resistance are criminalized, while our occupiers and colonizers get away with war crimes and on the blood and displacement of our people. And because we know decolonization, freedom, and self-determination is always necessarily a mortal threat to settler states, I write this to uphold, honor, and protect our many different forms of resistance as we struggle against imprisonment, erasure, and colonization. And to express solidarity, meaning an intertwined liberation and freedom with those struggling for Indigenous self-determination on Turtle Island. Okay, so this is I Must Become a Menace to My Enemies, and I wrote this actually in honor of Ahid Tamimi for an action that was on her birthday while she was in prison. And Ahid Tamimi, if you don't know, is a 17-year-old girl, like powerful teenager who was imprisoned for slapping a soldier. And this poem is after June Jordan's poem of the same name. June Jordan is also an amazing Black West Indian poet and organizer, and very inspired by her work and by her writing, and especially her writing on solidarity between as a Black woman and with Palestinians. So this is after her poem and in honor of Ahid Tamimi. 1. I will no longer lightly walk behind any one of you who fear me. Be afraid. I plan to give you reasons to stay up at night, fearing the stars above you will drop out of the sky. I plan to leave the mark of my hand on the side of your face, as you, in your green beige camouflage and trigger happy sniper, march on the ashes and blood and bones you stand on and try to silence. Don't you know these olive trees are still alive despite the fire? They resurrect to the sound of this tongue. I will not walk politely for you anymore on this ground that holds the same struggling against the bleaching of spilled blood, of demolished homes, of Indigenous genocide and ethnic cleansing, the same noise of trying to breathe under settlements uprooting native skin. This is dedicated in particular to those who ask us to make our death a little more palatable, our blood soft enough to chew, to shake hands with the gun that kills us. I plan to blossom bloody into red poppies, into both the knife and the sacrifice. I must become the seed my ancestors planted in a land that carries centuries of their tears ripped from their feet. I must become the rage they left behind with the key I have inherited to a home I know they belong to. I must become a menace to my enemies. 2. How many of my brothers and sisters will they kill, imprison, burn alive, rip apart before I teach myself to fight back? Shall we pick a number, like how 360 Palestinian children are under Israeli military detention, 700 detained every year through a court that boasts of a 99.7% conviction rate? Shall we talk about how the defense force shot Mohammed Tamimi in the head with a rubber bullet, how they arrested his cousin, tried to do the same to his brother, took Ahid from her family in the middle of the night? Shall we talk about Gaza being bombed again? Are we even paying attention? I must become a menace to my enemies. I admit that I have walked this bloody ground in silence, have held my tongue, stifled the dead inside me and the living still fighting with no one to forgive me. But like Ahid Tamimi, I must become a menace to my enemies. Blossom into resistance, plant my rage and burn my name to the skin of those who try to erase the history of my people, and let them try. I must become a menace to my enemies. 3. And if I ever let you forget, lying politician of the first terrorist degree, the taste of Zayt Zatoun, the scent of real hummus and falafel, the sounds of Debke and liberation, then I will summon the millions you have killed, displaced, imprisoned, to take your blue eyes and wear them around our necks. And if I ever let love go, forget where these words come from or who they belong to. I apologize, I'm talking fast. Because of fear or loss or respectability, then let them take my tongue and freeze my throat. I will become a menace to my enemies. So that's the end of the first poem. I apologize, I just saw the comment. I have been speaking very fast. I tend to do that when I'm nervous. I apologize. This next one, I promise I will speak slower. So this next poem is called Protect Mauna Kea from Huichin, and I wrote it as I was a part of the campaign at UC Berkeley that was organizing against UC Berkeley's investment in the 30-meter telescope that was being built on Mauna Kea. So I wrote this after kind of narrating one of the protests that I had gone to, and also kind of also interrogating my own position as a Palestinian, but as being raised in all I know, like on Turtle Island. So my responsibility as a guest here and to fight for Indigenous self-determination here in Turtle Island in Huichin as a UC Berkeley student, and with UC Berkeley being kind of foundational and so invested and continually invested in Indigenous dispossession and displacement. So this is Protect Mauna Kea. Smoke rises to speak to us, to the us before and to the us after. Smoke rises to illuminate the histories they have tried to obscure, the voices of the bodies they have tried to wrap their hands around and hide in a women's locker room basement, then underneath a pool. Smoke rises to make clear the names: anthropology, colonialism, Krober, violence, Ishi, that is not his name, we do not know his name, USA, Turtle Island, Berkeley, Huichin, burning sage and tobacco on a bowl wrapped in foil, he sings. She sings too. They sing and they tell us that we are only guests here, and guests have responsibilities. I am a guest here and I have responsibilities to remember and to name and to fight with the people and the places that were here before the Campanile, Hearst Gymnasium, Krober Hall. They are still here. I have dues to pay to the women who have been and have carried and have cared for the land so that I can be a guest. I have dues to pay to the land that holds me as a guest. I listen and they sing for themselves and for this home. They sing for Mauna Kea. They sing for the protectors, the women who have come from Hawaii. They have come as guests too, come as fighters too. They make clear the names: Mauna Kea, giver of water and life; TMT telescope, taker of water and life; UC Berkeley Department of Astronomy, investor in destruction. They make clear the names: Aloha means peace, not complacent; science means healing, not destruction. Together we sing, do you hear it? They ask us if we see the moon pass over Venus in the Pacific. Of course we do not. We will never see, not from here, but we listen. Do you hear them? The aunties cry and sing and hold each other. Do you hear it? If you know you're from the stars and you feel it in your heart, stand and protect Mauna Kea. Songs are prayers. Tears bring us closer to the earth and then to ourselves. They say that they are tired and we must fight with them too. Our struggle is one, from Huichin to Hawaii to Palestine. Are you fighting? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hulette. Thank you so much. Such gratitude. Beautiful. Yeah, take a minute, take it in. Feel free to express your gratitude in the chat. This is a time, you know, every time is a time for poetry, but this is a time I've been thinking about how much we need poets to describe what is happening and to reveal what is happening and to encourage us in our resistance. Now, I want to say a word about an incredible sister who is going to join us on this program and unfortunately is not able to, but I want to bring her into the space in a different way. Her name is Crystal Two Bulls. She is an incredible activist and organizer, and she was going to join us to talk about the Land Back campaign. I'll just say Crystal is part of the Oglala Lakota and Northern Cheyenne tribes from Lame Deer, Montana, and she is the director of Land Back. She has extensive experience as an organizer and on the front lines with campaign development and management on local, national, and transnational campaigns for social, racial, and environmental justice. And Crystal is going to join us to talk about the Land Back campaign that she is helping to lead, and unfortunately had to take her grandmother to the hospital, actually. And so she's there at this moment. And I wanted to say that not only to kind of bring her into the space and to say a word about Land Back, which I will momentarily, but also to say that we're with you, Crystal, we're with you and your grandmother. Prayers up for Crystal and her grandmother and their family. So let's keep them in our prayers, in our minds, and in our hearts. And I'll say a word about Land Back, which is, again, one of these amazing campaigns that are taking place across Turtle Island. The name makes it pretty clear what the campaign is about, but one of the things that Land Back is doing is they are reclaiming, taking back the sacred Black Hills, known to Lakotas as Hisapa, the location where the colonial Mount Rushmore is. And this is sacred territory that Land Back is reclaiming, and they will win. And so please go to the Land Back campaign's website. One of my collaborators could put it in the chat, that would be great. Please support Land Back. Please support we need to support them in terms of defense. People like Crystal face charges from the incredible action that took place outside of the outgoing president of this place, whose name I won't speak. You know, he had a rally at Mount Rushmore on the 4th of July. Pretty straightforward what that is about. You know, pretty straightforward that when we talk about colonization, this isn't something in the past, this is something that they are adamant about in the present, and they want to see go into the future. We know that colonization has no future, right? There were people there in the Black Hills confronting this celebration of colonialism and imperialism and nationalism. And there are people who are arrested and who are facing charges, just as there are people who are still facing charges from the Standing Rock uprising. So please donate to defend these freedom fighters, these water protectors, these land protectors, and not only defensively, but in terms of what they are putting forward to support the future, which is part of a decolonized future, a free future for Indigenous peoples, for this planet, and for all of us. So please check out Land Back. Please support their work. Please check out Crystal Two Bulls and what she is doing. And again, prayers up to Crystal and her grandmother. With that, I want to introduce Murad Odeh, who is our next speaker. Murad is a Palestinian activist and a community organizer who was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. He co-founded many youth groups and networks in Palestine that focus on the right of return, international solidarity, and political engagement. Welcome, Murad.
Thanks, Khury. Thanks, everyone. It's really hard to speak after what the poems of Voulette, but I will try now. It's an honor for me to be here. This is an important moment to remind ourselves with the root cause of the Palestinian liberation movement and each of our struggles for freedom, and also important to reconnect ourselves as Palestinians with other liberation movements across the world. It's also important to remember that on this day in 1947, the United Nations voted on partition plan for Palestine as a solution to end the conflict, despite the recommendations of its own delegates that were sent to Palestine to study the situation in that period. The leader of that delegation, whose name was Folk Bernadotte, reported over and over to the United Nations about the human rights breaches against Palestinians and by the Zionist militias and the British government, and insisted on the importance of right of return and the danger of that partition plan against the people in the area. However, the United Nations did not take this report into consideration. Shortly after, in September 1948, he was assassinated by Zionist militias, and there was no one held accountable. The international organizations have failed to protect and advocate for our rights for all those years. It was complicit with the colonial powers by its silence and inability to maintain our mere human rights. Out of 13 million Palestinians today, there are 8 million of them who are refugees and internally displaced persons. Nakba is not an event that happened in the past and ended. It is an ongoing process to ethnically cleanse and end the Palestinians' existence in Palestine. Palestinian land is shrinking and suffering, and the people and the suffering of the people became intolerable. Throughout our work to advocate for the oppressed and uplift this struggle and the means, with all the means possible, we should never forget the root cause of the liberation movement. Today, after 72 years of the Nakba, we are demanding the implementation of the UN Resolution 194, right of return for Palestinian refugees. I am a third Palestinian refugee, born and raised in a refugee camp in West Bank. We, the survivors of that systematic machine that tirelessly work to crush all of us, whether we are working toward our freedom or simply silent. Our responsibility to work toward a future that our kids will not be criminalized and can live without fear. Living in a refugee camp, I know one fact, that Israel failed to convince me that I am a criminal, that my cousin who was shot fighting and killed trying to protect me and us, or my grandmother who died holding the key of return and never lost hope. I am also convinced that they cannot criminalize me in the eyes of the other people in struggle, and the opposite is correct. We are very well aware that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed, as Steve Biko said. Therefore, we are here to reconnect our causes and unite to decriminalize and decolonize our struggle. In the eyes of colonialism and its tools, I will cease to be seen as a criminal only if I am dead, and not if I am silent. No matter what compromises I am willing to make, I will be seen as one. Whether I call my uprising beautiful resistance or green, my resistance will be criminalized. The Zionist slogan have been, just to remember, was a land without people for people without land. The colonial project works hard to destroy our integrity in so many ways, like promoting a good Palestinian zone or other bad one, by punishing families if they hosted someone who was wanted to the Israeli side, for sure, or punishing the whole family if one of its members is a prisoner or a martyr, by suffocating Palestinians economically and fueling the class struggle, by taking people's resources away and making them depending on settler colonialism and their mercy, and many policies that aim to end Palestinians' existence in Palestine. Criminalizing the oppressed has gone so far long. The oppressor governments have created systems in which we live in to criminalize us automatically. Everything we say, everything we do is criminalized. That history of creating an image of who we are, as Edward Said mentioned in his book, Orientalism, normalized our killing and destruction as humans and nation. It is overdue that we should create a new consciousness and a new system that saves our earth and our humanity. My cousin Hassan Zawahra, who was arrested in the first time, he was 21 years old in 2002. Since then, he has been arrested 8 times, and he is still in prison. He spent almost 15 years in jail, 8 years of them under administrative detention. He was enthusiastic enough to register at the university for a bachelor degree in social work back in 2008. It has been 12 years. He is still not able to finish his last semester. This is how short his time outside the prison has been. Hassan has 4 kids. His youngest was born when he was in prison, and he still is. He never seen his kid. He participated in an open hunger strike back in 2015, and to end administrative detention, he was released, but soon after he was arrested again and did not have a chance to say goodbye to his brother Mu'taz, who was shot and killed by an Israeli sniper. We demand the freedom of 4,500 Palestinian political prisoners and the end of the administrative detention law. I would love to ask you to join the campaign that launched by Samidoun to free Khitam Safin, one of the political prisoners, and all other political prisoners in Palestine. On the international level, the Palestinian voices have been censored and criminalized. Zoom, Facebook, and other social media platforms has denied Palestinians the right to express their voices and were influenced by the Zionist groups. Despite all the pressure that is put on the solidarity movement, it is still fighting back and defending our rights to BDS and to resist the colonizers. At the end, after 100 years of criminalizing of our struggles and attempts to ethnically cleanse the indigenous people around the world, so many years of demonizing our cultures, we are still here, not only existing, but also consciously aware who we are. I am confident that this future, that the future is ours. The future is for sure indigenous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Beautiful. Okay. I know we're all moved, and let's take that being moved to do more action. So I'm going to turn it back to Jonathan for our second and final action of this rally.
Thank you, Khury. And thank you, Murad, for those powerful words and that clear call to action. So I'm not going to take up much time now. We have our call. As Murad said, Samidoun, as we speak, has an ongoing Twitter campaign to raise awareness of the case of Khury Petersen-Smith, a Palestinian feminist scholar activist, arrested earlier this month, and she's currently being held in Israeli administrative detention without charge. The target for this campaign is the general public. It's an educational campaign. So you can post these on Twitter, on Facebook, on any social media that you have. But again, Rochelle is going to share in the chat tweets that you can copy and paste. You can either copy and paste them to Twitter or to Facebook or any other social media platform that you are on. You can also go to FASNA or CPT's Facebook page or to our Twitter pages and retweet some of the tweets that we have there that include images created by Samidoun for the campaign. Or you can write your own and use the hashtags Free Khury Petersen-Smith and Unite to Decriminalize. So I will let you add it. We'll meet back here in 5 minutes. The background music for this action is going to be a Palestinian resistance song that was actually written earlier this year during the pandemic. And it's performed by the Daughters of Jerusalem. They're part of the Edward Said Conservatory of Music. And it's a Palestinian resistance song called Leh Tajaru, or Do Not Leave Your Country. happy tweeting. All right, I'm seeing a lot of tweets and I've barely even had time to get onto Facebook to see what y'all are doing there. Keep it up, great job. And Khury will bring us back here in just a minute.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Jonathan. And feel free, I put this in the chat, but feel free to hand it over to Friends of Sabeel North America's Twitter as well to see these tweets and retweets at FOSNA Live, FOSNA Live. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce Tarek Abouatta. Tarek Abouatta is a Christian queer Palestinian activist with 15 years experience working on the ground in Palestine and 10 years working in this place called the United States. He currently serves as Friends of Sabeel North America's executive director. Tarek.
Thank you, Khury. Thank you all. Tarek Abouatta, a Palestinian, Christian, queer, sometimes angry Arab racial justice activist. I served 9 years with Christian peacemaker teams and 5 years with FOSNA. And when I worked with CPT in Hebron on the ground, I was shackled for doing justice work against the racist hardware machine. And during my work with FOSNA in DC, countering Christians United for Israel, I was shackled for doing justice work against the racist software machine, religious moral covers. In both cases, my shackles were loosened, but that hasn't been the case for many others, as we heard from Murad and his family members and others on this call. Thankfully, Christian peacemaker teams and Friends of Sabeel North America's mission is not about loosening shackles. We're here today in our common mission of breaking off shackles, stomping them out, and depending on your energy, turning them into plowshares or slinging back to the hell they came from so that they will never again be used on another child of God's body. I would like to ask you to connect yourself in solidarity with this mission as we celebrate racial justice in the making. Please do not do it as a favor or even as an obligation, but in the only way of becoming the movement, as part of freeing the violent history of your ancestors and freeing the souls of your children. Indigenous villages and spaces in Turtle Island and Palestine, like Sacred Black Hills and al-Khair, have been desecrated and demolished tens of times. But if the mother of abundance, goodness, which is then translation of al-Khair from Arabic, if the village of 70 people is still alive after 16 demolitions, y'all, we've got to keep going ourselves. And this is why FOSNA and CPT encourages your membership, continuing membership, the giving of your resources and your time as to keep our joint movement alive and thriving. The 3 ways we offer today is 1, educate. FOSNA and CPT links will be shared in the chat. They include a way of becoming a member as to join our list and receive publications, mailings, and e-blasts. Give. These links will also include ways to give of your resources. We have donors who give $5 a month or $12 a year, up to donors who are able to give a lot more and do. 3, act. We invite you to also connect in action. And these action steps will be included in the exit cards you'll be asked to fill out. These briefly will include, for CPT, organizing an online or in-person nonviolence training, joining a delegation to Palestine or Turtle Island, inviting a speaker to meet online or in person with your group. For Friends of Sabeel, organizing a webinar or an in-person city visit with FOSNA, joining a national network of local leaders challenging Christian Zionism, and joining a network of Black Christian, Asian American Christian, and Latinx Christians. Thank you from FOSNA and CPT for being the movement. Back to you, Khury. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarek. Tarek, felt like I was in church for a minute there. That's that good church. That's that liberation church. Thank you so much. And I want to wrap us up this incredible program and extend gratitude to Christian Peacemaker Team, to Friends of Sabeel North America, to the various campaigns and organizations that were part of this amazing program. And shout out to 1492 Land Back Lane, shout out to the Land Back campaign, Shout out to Palestinian youth movement. Shout out to Students for Justice in Palestine. Thank you so much for all of the people and the organizations that made this possible, and those who shared it out to promote it. And thank you all for joining us. This is a time that demands resistance. It is a time that demands solidarity. And we know that when Palestine is free, when Palestinians rise, that is about their right to return. That is about freedom for Palestine, but it will lift up all of us. We know that when Palestine is free, all of us will be free. We know that when Indigenous people in Turtle Island resist, when Indigenous people in Turtle Island win control of their land, defense of their sovereignty, when they win, that is a win for them, and it is a win for the planet, for a livable planet, and a win for humanity. Had a little chat in the lead up to this with Crystal Two Bulls. We were talking about Landback's campaign to restore the sacred Black Hills to the people to whom it belongs and who care for it. And she said that they took inspiration also from the Black uprisings toppling the statues of racist colonizers. And they said, we can take back what they call Mount Rushmore. It is a reminder that it's not only that when one of us falls, we all fall, but when one of us rises, we all rise. So thank you, stay in touch, stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, decolonize. Freedom for all Indigenous people from this place, Turtle Island, to Palestine. And we're gonna close that with some music. Solidarity to you all.
We're going to close out with a South African dance song called Jerusalema that sparked an international dance craze. And we're also going to show you the video because we got a video of Palestinians dancing to it. So we're going to dance it out here. Hope you enjoy, Khury, especially.
You already know.
Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze Yerusalema